Welcome Home, a podcast for veterans, about veterans by veterans, is a project of Willing Warriors and the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run.
Good morning. I'm Larry Ziliox, Director of Culinary Services here at the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run. And this week we're continuing our series on military-themed museums here in the Northern Virginia area. We've previously done the Marine Corps Museum and the Army Museum, and I'm really excited to have our guest, Gary Powers, Jr., who's the chairman of the Cold War Museum. And probably most of our listeners have not heard of the Cold War Museum, and that may be in part because we have listeners all over the world. The most surprising thing to me the other day that I saw in our statistics was that 5% of our listeners are in Germany. And I don't know why. I'm thinking maybe service members that are stationed there. But the Cold War Museum is located at Vint Hill in Warrenton, Virginia, which is Fauquier County. It's right close to us here. It's been there for a good while, and I have been out there at least 4 times. Our warriors will go and take tours, but I love to go. It's fascinating. This Vint Hill, which is an old Army base, is fascinating in and of itself. Gary, welcome to the podcast.
Well, Larry, thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. You have a wonderful facility, and I'm looking forward to talking shop with you about Cold War history and why we did the Cold War Museum.
Well, that was really kind of my very first question was, how did the idea for the Cold War Museum come up?
Back in 1992, I moved to Virginia from California.
Okay.
I'm doing my graduate degree at George Mason University in public administration, nonprofit management. I start to give lectures in the Northern Virginia area on the U-2 incident. Mm-hmm. My dad, Gary Powers, U-2 pilot shot down May 1st of 1960 over the Soviet Union. I'm going into classrooms. I'm giving a talk on the U-2 incident. I get blank stares from the kids. They think I'm there to talk about the U-2 rock band. And so I'm realizing, hey, something has to be done to preserve Cold War history. Then, through the research I've done over the last 40 plus years to find out the truth of what my father went through, I realized that he's famous. He's in the history books. He's gotten accolades posthumously for his participation in the Cold War U-2 program. But that there were hundreds of thousands of other men and women, our veterans, who fought, sacrificed, some of who died during the Cold War time period. The Cold War was not always cold. Mm-hmm. That they were not getting the recognition that I thought they deserved for helping to win the Cold War between 45 and 91. Mm-hmm. So you combine those two aspects of educating the kids, honoring the veterans, and we founded the Cold War Museum in 1996 to honor veterans, preserve history, educate future generations.
Wow. Well, I can say it's located at Vint Hill. And I think what's fascinating about Vint Hill, it's not just any old military base. So tell our listeners a little bit about the background of Vint Hill and how it came to be so important in World War II.
Oh, sure. Well, Vint, V-I-N-T, Hill, H-I-L-L. Vint Hill Farms was the original farm location owned by a farmer and his family back in the World War II era. He was a ham radio operator, and he would be able to pick up signals from Japan, from Germany, from Italy, from other countries around the world. So he invites one of his friends over one night for a cigar and a bourbon, and he says, hey, General so-and-so, guess what I can pick up on my shortwave radio? So the general, his eyes get really wide because he's hearing German and or Italian taxi cab stands and Japanese signals, and he's thinking, what is going on here? We need to have this location as a listening post to pick up international signals to monitor our enemies during World War II. So they reach a deal. I think they sell it to the farmer sells it to the government for about $120,000 in 1942 dollars. So that was a chunk of change.
Yeah.
And Vint Hill Farm Station was birthed. So Vint Hill Farm Station was active from World War II up through about 1997. In World War II, it was monitoring the Japanese, the German, the Italians. In the Cold War, it was monitoring Russia, China, and everybody else. They had lots of antennas on the property, many pointed at Washington, D.C., to pick up the embassy communications. In addition, for whatever reason, the topography, the granite soil composition, it's a natural receiver. So it would pick up international signals from around the world. And during the Cold War, that was very important to find out what our enemies were doing. So it was functional between 1942-43 to 1997. It was housed and staffed by members of NSA, CIA, and Army Security Agency, ASA. It was known as the Listening Post Number 1. And so that's what it did. It listened to things around the world. It was closed in 97 at BRAC, Base Realignment and Closure Act. It sat vacant for a few years. Then the governor of Virginia in the early 2000s basically said, we have to do something with this property. They created the Vint Hill Economic Development Authority. It was chaired by Ike Broaddus, who is one of the owners of the brewery on site, the old Busthead Brewery. He came from a real estate background in Northern Virginia. I happen to have known Ike because my mother-in-law worked for him back in the 2000 era. Small world syndrome. And he was able to put this board and commission together. They redeveloped the properties. They sold off some sections. Now there's homes. There's vacant land for real estate investors. There's winery, a brewery, the Cold War Museum. There's a pizza place and some other small shops. There's a covert cafe, and there's a fine dining restaurant that's just come online the last few months. So it's really grown over the last 12, 15 years. It's a great place. It's actually a Warrenton address, but it's right next to Gainesville.
Yeah.
So Warrenton's still another 20 minutes away from where we're located.
Yeah, that's the postal designation.
Correct.
Warrenton, yeah. You get the idea and you start the museum and you say, we've got to educate the public about the Cold War because it's sort of, there's just a time gap there. In textbooks, it's barely mentioned. It's kind of in between World War II and Korea and then Vietnam, and really not much about the Cold War is taught or understood. So you now have to go about gathering artifacts. And how did that work? Where did you get because I've seen the collection and it is amazing. It's a small space, but it's jam-packed with really cool stuff and a lot of very fascinating stuff about Vint Hill, the listening station too. But how did you acquire all the artifacts?
Well, back in 96, when I founded the museum, I started reaching out to friends, associates. I'm in the D.C. area, living in Fairfax City. I'm able to talk to retired military veterans, and I'm able to meet some very interesting people. So I start getting the word out. And at first, back in 96, I'm thinking it's going to take 3 years to build, fundraise $3 million, shouldn't be too hard to do. It took 15 years to get brick and mortar when we located at Vint Hill, Virginia. But during that 15-year time period, we started to collect and gather as many Cold War artifacts as we could find. Some off eBay, some off donations from veterans, some off people who worked or lived in Europe during the Cold War time period that had amassed collections. And we just got the word out. So as a result of getting the word out and through the help of our board of directors and friends and associates, we've acquired items from crew members of the USS Liberty incident, the USS Pueblo incident, overhead reconnaissance platforms such as the U-2 program, the SR-71 program, KH and or Corona spy satellite programs. We have items from one of the Iranian hostage rescuers, his field jacket that he wore during the rescue operation, as well as hundreds of flags, banners, regalia, uniforms, East German, West German, American, Russian, you name it, from the Cold War time period. We have uniforms of that period for various countries around the world. So we've amassed this collection. It is in a 2,000 square foot museum space currently, and we have 2 storage facility units down the street. So we've been growing on site. We are looking for people to help with our efforts. If any of your listeners have an interest in supporting our efforts, helping our efforts, volunteering, you can go to coldwar.org to find out more about our efforts and to contact me through that platform.
Well, listeners, that's the web page. It's coldwar.org. I want everybody to go there. check it out. Look at the times when the museum is open. It's not open every day, so make sure you just don't show up, but see the times. And you're going to see a button on there that says donate. My regular listeners know that every time I talk about a nonprofit, I'm telling you to donate. And I'm sure you're out there going, hey, we can't donate to everybody. I understand that. But this is important because they're the only ones that are doing it. Okay? So if this goes away, there's going to be this void in history that will just sort of evaporate. And I'm sure the collection will just go back to, people loan things or be sold off, or God forbid, in bankruptcy, or just nightmarish things about some incredible artifacts that are on display. And so please consider, give, $5, $10, $100, $1,000, $10,000, build a new building for them. Whatever you can do, hit that donate button and give your support and find a way to get over there and see it. And I guarantee you, if you get over there and see it, you'll even donate more, because it's surprising that you walk in and it's small, and then there's the upstairs area. But when you're done and you leave, you can't believe how much time you spent there, because it's just one cool thing after another. And some are big uniforms, big equipment, and some things are really small. And every artifact has an amazing story. And we'll call them docents that are there volunteering, you kind of walk away getting the feeling that, some of these guys, probably old CIA hands, they've been in the IC community for a while, and they know what they're talking about, and they know their history, and they lived it. They were there on the ground. They were in East Germany and West Germany and all over. And for sure, you definitely don't want to miss it.
Yeah, some of our docents actually worked at Vint Hill.
Oh,
so they have that institutional knowledge of working on base during the Cold War time period. Another docent is currently in the IC community and will be retiring shortly, so he can put more time into the museum.
Nice.
A couple of the other items that we have that are very unique in displays. We have a room dedicated to Vint Hill and the history from World War II until it closed. Beetle Bailey, the comic strip, was created at Vint Hill.
Wow.
Because the soldier who was stationed there ended up being the artist of Beetle Bailey, one of those little trivia knowledge things.
Wow.
We have some items from civil defense. We were able to save and salvage the civil defense headquarters for Washington, D.C. back about 20 years ago, before people went in and just took everything. We were able to get permission from Fairfax County. The headquarters was located in Lorton, Virginia, on the site of the old jail facility.
Yeah.
It was the civil defense headquarters for D.C. So we walk in, and it's as if they turned off the lights and walked away. Books were open to certain pages. Coffee cups and cigarettes were still in the ashtrays. There was no more coffee. It evaporated. But it was just as if they locked the door and walked away. So we were able to collect and save and salvage the entire entity of the Civil Defense Headquarters for D.C. So we have the Bert the Turtle duck and covered original audio tapes and videotapes.
I remember that.
Not even video, reel-to-reel tapes at the time.
Right.
We have the nuclear fallout shelter plans. We have all of the things from Pepco and Washington Gas, FBI, CIA, the things that were in their individual booths in case of a natural disaster or, heaven forbid, a nuclear war. That would have been the primary communication center for Washington, D.C. to coordinate the aftermath.
Right.
So that's one of the exhibits we have. An exhibit on the U-2 incident. Dad was a U-2 pilot, shot down, of course, wanted to keep his memory alive.
Sure.
But it's not the Gary Powers Museum. Back 25 years ago or so when I founded it, some people thought, oh, you're doing this for your dad. Well, yes, I did it for my dad, but I did it for the hundreds of thousands of other men and women who fought, sacrificed, some of who died during this time period that were not being recognized for their service to our country.
Yeah.
So there is a small section on Dad, but there's also sections on overhead reconnaissance, U-2 program, SR-71 program. As we go upstairs, we have an area on Area 51 because that was the test site for the U-2, the SR-71, the F-117 Stealth, and whatever they're flying out there today. We have a section on Soviet and American subs, a section on American and Soviet missiles, and then, of course, the flags, the banners, the regalia, the uniforms. One of the unique items we have is a Stasi headquarters sign from the Stasi headquarters in Berlin that someone acquired when the wall fell.
Yeah.
And it ended up in our collection. We have a piece of the U-2 shot down over Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis, piloted by Major Rudolph Anderson. He died in that shoot down. That was the second shoot down to happen. Dad was the first U-2 to be shot down over the Soviet Union. Major Anderson's U-2 over Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis was the second. Then there were 5 more shot down over mainland China during the 60s. They were flown by a unit called the Black Cat Program, Taiwanese pilots that were trained by the CIA to overfly China. And so we have some of their items and artifacts and desk plaques and awards that tells that story. So we have a very eclectic collection of Cold War, military, intelligence, social aspects of the Cold War.
I do want to talk a little bit about your dad. Listeners would probably recognize his name from the Spielberg Tom Hanks movie, Bridge of Spies, which was not so much a movie about your dad, but about the lawyer who the government asked to help free your dad, which was it was a great movie. And I gotta tell you this story. Pre-release of the movie, my wife and I were invited over there to Fairfax for the screening that the museum did. And it's in this really nice theater where you can get your meal there and take it into the theater and everything. And we were really excited to go because, one, after the movie, you and the granddaughter of the attorney featured the Tom Hanks character were going to do a Q&A, and I knew it was going to be good. So we got some food, and we were sitting up kind of high, and then all of a sudden, this group of guys come in with wives, and the wives sit over here, and they've got buckets of beer, and they're sitting next to us and just having a grand old time. And I'm like, oh man, who are these guys? And then before the movie started, the head of the U-2 Pilots Association gets up and says, talks about the movie and U-2 pilots, and he says, "Oh, and we're very excited to have some U-2 pilots in the audience today. And it's these guys that stand up next to us." I had no idea. It was really something. It was a fantastic movie. And so what was it like consulting on the movie about your dad?
Well, let me give a little background, and then I'll go into the movie aspect of it. Growing up in Southern California, I was aware that my father was shot down, imprisoned, and eventually exchanged for a Soviet spy. This happened a few years before I was born. I was born when he came home. My father dies in a helicopter crash in 1977. I'm 12 years old at the time.
Now, he was flying for a traffic helicopter in Los Angeles, right?
Correct. KNBC News, Station Channel 4, or News Channel 4 at the time. And I remember flying with him and hiking and biking and fishing, all the normal father-son things. But people would ask for his autograph. He'd go to air shows. I'd fly with him to the Reno air races. So I was aware that, he was a pilot and that people wanted his autograph and that he was in a history book. But I just thought that was normal. I thought everybody's dad went through this. I just didn't understand the significance of what he went through until he died.
Right.
So he dies in 77, very introverted throughout high school because I don't want to talk about it. People ask me questions I don't know the answers to. So in college, I'm curious. I want to find out the truth of what my father went through. He's controversial. There are conspiracy theories about him and the U-2 incident.
Yeah.
So I want to find out the truth of what he went through so I know how to answer questions. Well, that led to the creation of the Cold War Museum. Then that led to the things I'm doing now, lecturing, writing, and teaching Cold War history. I have 6 or 7 books published. I have one on Cold War Virginia I've got three on my father, one of which is a graphic novel. I have a graphic novel out on the Berlin airlift, and I'm currently working on Cold War California. So that's what keeps me busy currently. In addition, I lecture every chance I get. So if one of your listeners has a venue, either nationally or internationally, where I can come out and give a talk on Cold War history and or the U-2 incident, please send me an email through my contact page at garypowers.com or through coldwar.org. So that leads up to 2014. I hear rumors that Spielberg and Hanks are going to do a movie that will portray my father. I'm thinking at the time, that's not going to happen. Then I get confirmation it's going to happen. I'm able to get in touch with their producer, Mark Platt. Mark Platt and I talked for an hour in July of 2014. At the end of the conversation, Mark basically says to me, Mr. Powers, you're very knowledgeable on the Cold War, the U-2 incident, what your father went through. How would you like to consult for the film? Well, yes, that would be really nice.
Sure.
Thank you. So I get the contract. I'm reading through it. I'm to answer questions, be on set as invited, provide photographs from my family in the 50s that they can Photoshop, provide audio tapes of my father that he recorded in the 60s. That way they can listen to him in his own words as to what he went through. And at the very end of the contract, the last paragraph basically says, they don't have to listen to me. Okay. So I talked to some friends, I talked to my sister, and I figure it's more important to be a part of the production, try to steer them in the right direction. Had I walked away, I'd have had no say whatsoever. So I am very glad that I did sign the contract. It was an honor and a privilege to work with Spielberg and Hanks, the lighting crews, the makeup, the hairstylist, the props, the wardrobe. Just see how a Hollywood movie is made from behind the scenes. Awesome experience.
It's quite a bit, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. So much goes into it. You just don't understand.
Yeah.
Meeting Austin Stoll, the young man who portrayed my father. Meeting Mark Reliance, who portrayed Rudolph Abel. Meeting the other cast and characters in the film. It was just a wonderful experience. The overall movie, we definitely like. The big picture is historically accurate, but it's Hollywood.
Yeah.
So you have to remember the details are not 100% correct. The big picture is accurate. U-2 incident, Cold War time period, Soviet Union, capture of Rudolph Abel, shoot down of Dad, the exchange at the Glendicker Bridge, all very accurately portrayed. But only the people on the bridge know what happened, know where they were standing, know what was said. Sure. So Spielberg and his team have to recreate this using their genius to bring this scene to life. The Glendicker Bridge in Potsdam, Germany, is where the exchange took place, and it's also where they filmed the exchange scene. So that is historically accurate.
Yeah.
Other places, they used a place in Poland for the Berlin Wall scene. So again, not historically accurate for the locations, but on the big screen, you don't know the difference, and it's a wonderful movie.
Yeah. I encourage everybody to watch the movie. It's very entertaining. Of course, anything that Spielberg and Tom Hanks do is going to be first class for sure.
And you can get copies of it, DVDs and Blu-ray off of eBay, sometimes on the streaming services, as well as Netflix and Showtime will also show it on occasion.
Yeah. What are the future plans for the museum?
Future plans for the Cold War Museum. We are looking to grow on site. My board of directors recently in the last year has, how do I want to say this, authorized me to look for a like-minded institution to merge with or partner with. We would like to stay in Virginia because this is where, it's just the very close to Washington, D.C. and all the Cold War history. But there are several other museums around the country that have a Cold War focus, and we're trying to see if we are able to merge, partner, work together to keep this history alive. I do not have a money board. I have a functional board that volunteers and helps out. A retired U-2 pilot, a retired SR-71 pilot, a retired brigadier general, a leading real estate a company owner out of the Tyson's Corner area, a nonprofit management expert, myself, a retired CIA person, and a retired ambassador that used to serve or be stationed in Vietnam, the first U.S. ambassador to open that up. So we have 8 people on our board. But we are hand to mouth. We function on donations. We do a monthly lecture series via Zoom that you will pay for a ticket and then listen to these Cold War experts or historians or participants talk about their history. We do 2 major fundraising events throughout the year, one in December, one in May. Give Local Piedmont, which is for the Piedmont area, Warrenton, Virginia, and then Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is in December, and Give Local Piedmont is in May. So those are the 2 major fundraisers. Between the fundraising, between the donations, between the private tours that we offer for a small fee, that's what keeps the doors open. We're open on the weekends, staffed by volunteers. We would love to find an angel to help move our efforts forward more quickly.
Sure.
But it's just a matter of the outreach, getting people interested and promoting our efforts as where we can, just like this program today.
Yeah. Well, listeners, there it is. It's coldwar.org, and desperately need donations. So visit that webpage, give what you can. It's really important. And we want to keep the museum open for forever, really. There's not going to be a time when people don't need to know about this. It's an important time in history, and it's gone unnoticed and for too long. And if you're in the Northern Virginia area, please think about a weekend Saturday trip out to the Cold War Museum in Vint Hill. It's if you're in D.C., it's a nice ride right out 66. You can see all the beautiful data centers they're building, and then you'll get out into the country a little bit. And there's plenty to do out here, but you can easily spend 3 or 4 hours in there. Yeah, or longer, really.
And so if you do make it out, I'm there on occasion. But if you want to do a group tour midweek, just send us an email through our website, and either I or one of the docents will respond and select a date that you can come in midweek to visit. We are opened on the weekends to the public from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Sundays, and then by appointment for private groups and people who can't make it on a weekend.
Right.
Some of the recent groups we've had include the Benjamin School out of West Palm Beach, Florida. That's where some very well-known celebrities' children go. We've had a group from the CIA Alumni Association came out and visited, along with General Clapper, who was head of what's it called, National Defense, National Intelligence. We've had some groups from the State Department. We've had groups from Army, military, alumni groups, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guards come out. We have just a whole hodgepodge collection of different artifacts, all related to the Cold War. And one of the things you said, Larry, that's very important, is that we have to understand Cold War history in order to understand what we're happening today, right in our world with Ukraine and even in Gaza. Those have Cold War connections. With the Ukraine war, Putin, the East, America, and everybody else, the West, and the surrogate country where it's taking place, Ukraine. Just like Vietnam, just like Korea, just like Afghanistan. So there's a playbook out of the Cold War that's repeating itself right now. As far as Gaza goes, we know that's biblical times. There has been a conflict there for thousands of years. But in 1947, Israel became a state. That is a Cold War event. And from that moment on, Palestine did not get statehood, and there have been confrontations ever since that has now resulted in what we have in Gaza.
Yeah.
So there's always a connection to the Cold War in current history.
Yeah, and I think there's some very strong parallels to China as well.
Oh, yes. Cold War now is China.
Too. Yeah, for sure.
I like to say it's Cold War 2.0.
Yep, 2.0.
Russia, yes, they're a threat because they have nuclear weapons, but China is the long-term adversary. They are looking at the moon. They are looking at South China Sea. They have the largest military in the world, and they are thinking in terms of hundreds and thousands of years in the future and not just years or decades.
Yeah. So that makes the museum important. So everybody get out there as quickly as you can and see it and enjoy it. I guarantee you will. Until then, go to coldwar.org and donate. And Gary, I can't thank you enough for coming out. I know you're en route somewhere, and you made a point to stop off and record this with us, and we really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Larry. It's an honor and a privilege to be here, and I would highly recommend that your listeners also donate to your cause. This facility is awesome, and it really helps the wounded warriors coming back from battle.
Yeah, thank you. So, listeners, we'll have another episode next Monday morning at 0500. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms.
The Welcome Home podcast is brought to you by Willing Warriors, a nonprofit organization serving active duty service members and veterans since 2012. To learn more, please visit our webpage at willingwarriors.org.